Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we take the time to speak to small cap executives after they put out important news. And this guy keeps blowing out of the water with news. With us again, man, Seti Coscarella, CEO of TAAT Global, trades in Canada on the CSE under TAAT. For our friends in the US, TOBAF, and of course for our great friends in Europe on Frankfurt 2TP. For those of you new to the story, because you keep seeing incredible headlines, including the one today, about a $10 million private placement. That's what we're talking about. To understand the value proposition of TAAT, the growth possibilities, you first have to understand the recent massive trends that are taking place in consumer packaged goods. For example, non-alcoholic beer has grown to an $18 billion market. The plant-based meat market is projected to go to $75 billion by 2027. What's the common denominator? They provide consumers of the original products, alcohol, meat, with the exact same experience without the negative part of the original products. If you can imagine any industry that needs this, it's cigarette. TAAT has developed a nicotine-free, tobacco-free smoking experience that they launched in the US and internationally with incredible success. Why? It emulates, it's the closest experience of smoking a tobacco cigarette, but taste and smell just like it without any of the negative implications. Is that a lot of talk? No, because more than just lip service, they're in multiple US states, more than 1,000 total stores already. Their e-commerce portal, so they got this omni-channel marketing, has received orders from over 37 states. They've gone international, UK, Ireland, Australia, and Q3 revenue, we're going to talk about that, skyrocketed to an all-time high. Seti, welcome back, man.
George, man, you're hired. We don't need me anymore. We're just going to put you on.
Hey, I'll just put my face over your body, and we're the perfect.
I think
combo.
We're good. I think you pretty much wrapped up the interview.
1,000 stores, international e-commerce. You're officially commercialized. Before we get into the numbers, how does it feel? Did you guys expect to be making such incredible progress? Because to me, it's a blowaway right here, middle of October 2021.
No, I think this is going a lot faster than I would have thought. I've had a couple of interviews on this over the last little bit, and I'll tell them, like, for CPG, like, this really isn't normal. Okay, like, we're in over 1,000 stores now in over 20 states. We've got international distribution locked in for the UK, Ireland, and Australia. We're working with other distributors across Europe to get the product there. Really, our goal is to put this thing in front of every smoker on earth. And I think we're definitely moving in the right direction and running as quickly as we can to do that. So
is this a credit to the product, Seti, that it's that good? Because a lot of people have tried, even way back in the day, if you watch the movie Barbarians at the Gate, with Philip Morris and all that, they had a disaster of a product. It almost took the company down. Yeah. Is it a credit to what you guys have developed? It's that good?
Well, listen, I think it's always a combination of having a good product and a great team, because you can have a greatest mousetrap on earth, but if nobody knows it exists or you don't have the ability to get it out in front of people, nobody's going to buy it. So, to really succeed in this space, those are the things that you got to focus on. And I think that we've been able to demonstrate that we can do exactly that. And that's why we've been able to start ramping up on distribution, ramping up on points of sale, ramping up on international, and really starting to ramp up on marketing as well. So, this private placement that we brought in, I really do believe that this money is going to go to fantastic use to create value for shareholders and the business as a whole.
Well, that's great third-party validation, right? Because when George is willing to put down, a chunk of money as part of a $10 million private placement, they've done their due diligence. They're not doing it because you're a nice guy. They're not doing it because they're throwing it against the wall and see what sticks. They've done their due diligence, and that's how much confidence the market has in you. What are some of the things outside of the obvious? Because obviously there's a lot of corporate things you need to have cash in the bank for. But for example, we talked about, you may have to increase production and points of production, things like that. Is that where some of this money is going to go in order to give you better manufacturing?
Yep. We want to be able to expand on the infrastructure that we have. as we're starting to secure more and more and larger orders, we always want to be in the position to say yes and fulfill it as quickly as we can. So now that we're starting to see that come through, we really want to set ourselves up to succeed from that standpoint. Also, I think that a good chunk of it is going to go onto the marketing side, because at the end of the day, this is a CPG company and we got to build a brand. And a lot of the work that you do in the beginning and the money that you spend in the beginning in building the brand pays dividends down the road, because as you convert consumers, those consumers become sticky, right? This is the real value proposition, or the value that tobacco companies have been able to create. The consumers are effectively an annuity at that point. I don't need to keep telling somebody, and I think Marlboro's proven it better than anyone. When was the last time you saw the Marlboro Man? When was the last time you saw
when I was a
Marlboro
kid,
outside of a Ferrari?
1980s, 1980s.
Yeah. I mean, Marlboro still pays Ferrari for an F1 sponsorship, but you don't see anything on the car. So they've done a tremendous job of creating value in that brand to the point where everybody knows about it. When people start consuming that product, they stick with it and they keep delivering revenue to the company. So for us, we're trying to think about it the same way. If we start investing in building that brand and we do it correctly, as we start converting consumers, they will in effect become long-term consumers for TAAT, and that's what we hope. And
promoters
will continue to grow the revenues as the quarters progress. I mean, that's really the underlying strategy that we're trying to achieve.
You had 10 mil when you put out the Q3 on the balance sheet. You're adding another 10 mil through the private placement. So let's call it 20 million. How far does that take you, Seti?
Listen, I think it takes us a good while. Now, I mean, you got to remember, in the beginning stages, there's a lot of different opportunities that'll come as we start adding new countries, or as we start adding new states, or we start expanding within new states. So right now we're starting to take a look at a lot of different brand building initiatives that we can execute on throughout the US and into Europe. And as we start executing on those, obviously there'll be some expenses, but we also anticipate revenues being able to come in against that. So
yeah, it's not a straight cash burn anymore, because you set record quarterly revenues in Q3 with 1.3 mil ballpark. So
yeah,
it's not just all burn anymore. That's got to feel
no, I mean,
great,
we've got
right?
a product in market. It's starting to sell, and I think that it'll continue to sell, especially as we start adding more and more states, more and more stores, more and more countries. So I think the prospects of the company look good to me, and we want to continue along that trajectory to try to grow this thing as fast as we can.
And on that note, you posted an amazing video from a conference, and we raved about it because we said this is the way CEOs should be engaging with their investors. And you and I have talked about this, and you did it, which is great. Which is, you're at a conference, let them know, show them where you are, what you're doing. So everybody saw that, and I think everyone was thrilled by you, welcoming investors in that way. How well did the conference go? How did first of all, who were you meeting with? And how well did it go?
Well, listen, the conference itself, so NACS, is the largest trade convenience show in America. So you'll have, if you can buy it in a convenience store, they're exhibiting at this show. So you have Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Mondelez, Mars,
wow.
Coors, all the cigarette companies. It's just a massive show. But alongside that, you'll also have a lot of the distributors that are walking around, and a lot of people, representatives from the stores, walking around, looking at what innovation there is on the CPG side, what products they might be able to start including into their product mix, and what they think might resonate with their consumers. So listen, I mean, we can have Zoom meetings all day long, but it's very difficult to replicate the in-person. And
especially for CPG,
right? Because people can come, they can see it, feel it, touch it, speak to the people, understand what it is, and really get a sense for what the value proposition would be for their customers and consumers. So I think the show went extraordinarily well. We made a number of great contacts. It really is an exercise in starting to build those relationships throughout the industry, and I think we're doing a tremendous job of that. And I think we'll have some good updates that we'll be able to share over the next couple of weeks on some of the results of that show. But
think you walked away with some new distributors?
Yeah, I think exactly. So I mean, we're in discussions now with a lot of distributors that we would have met at that show, and I think we'll be able to get that across the line, because again, the product makes sense. I mean, we've been saying this since the beginning. I think consumers, smokers specifically, will resonate and gravitate towards it because it helps solve a massive problem for them. And even from a distributor, a wholesaler, retailer side, if you compare selling TAAT to selling any other cigarette, they can achieve significantly greater margins selling our product than they can selling any competitor product. So we really wanted to make this as win-win-win as possible. We think it's a win for the consumer because they get a much stronger value proposition than buying traditional cigarettes, both from the fact that it's a non-addictive option, and two, that it'll always be cheaper than the leading cigarette brands in the market. It's a win for the distributors and the wholesalers and the retailers because they can make more money selling our product than they can selling any other cigarette. And it's obviously going to be a win for the shareholders because we'll be able to see reap the rewards of that.
And by the way, there's also another benefit for retailers. If I'm George Calm Convenience, another great thing about carrying TAAT is it comes with a lot less regulatory oversight and all the things that go with security, age verification, all of those potential pitfalls of selling things like traditional cigarettes and tobacco. So there's also that benefit, which is, hey, I can carry this, and there's nothing regulatory I have to really keep up with here, right?
Yeah.
Something that I saw.
I think it all fits in nicely across the puzzled landscape of tobacco distribution from start to finish.
I took a look at the Q3 numbers. Something that stood out, because I really like to take a close look at these things, is your gross profit margin. Your gross profit margin came in at 59.84%. I'm going to round that up to 60 just to make it easy. 60%. Consumer packaged goods, the number is, if you can get to 40 or even 50, you're hitting it out of the park. You're significantly above that. Like, if 40 is the threshold and you're at 60, that's a 50% improvement over the 20 over 40. That's a 50% improvement over the consumer packaged good industry. That's amazing, because typically you'd expect a lower gross margin when you're just coming out with a product. Say, hey, George, we got to give it away. We got to, we're gonna try and buy our way into the market. And we're gonna work on a 20% margin. Can you sustain these margins? I would assume you can, but talk to me about the margins, because that's impressive.
Yes, I think we can. And I think, again, these are the margins that we're able to demonstrate in the early stages of building out this company. As we start, getting larger, our purchasing power increases, and we should be able to help drive those margins up and some of the costs down. So it really just becomes a function of scale. And I think that we're well on our way to achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. And for all investors, you should take a look at gross margin, because sometimes we all just look at revenue, and which is great, you have to have it, but you got to have the margin go with it. Otherwise, you don't have a sustainable business. In fact, sometimes it's better for business not to sell anything because their margin is so poor. They're just dwindling into a faster loss, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. You also announced branded apparel and accessories. Talk to me about why you guys going in that direction.
Well, listen, I've always said, I mean, if you want to be successful, listen to your consumers and give them what they want. We started getting a lot of requests, especially after we did that Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul fight. So we started, and they were wearing the hats. So we started getting requests from everywhere. I want to buy a hat. I want to buy that hat. I want to buy that hat. I'm like, okay, well, if everybody wants to buy our branded merch, we should probably take a look at making some branded merch. And the initial response on at least that press release that we put out was very high. So I think as we get it out, it'll perform well, right? And for there's no better advocacy or branding than people who want to go out of their way to wear your brand.
Sorry, somebody else sneezing there.
No problem. Bless you.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't want people to think, oh, well, who cares if you putting out some branded apparel and merch, as you call it. It seems like nowadays consumers really want to support brands that they love. In the old days, it'd be, I'll wear around a Nike t-shirt and, Azod or whatever the case is. Yeah. But now it seems like, especially young people, merch has become a really big deal. It's a source of pride, right?
They want to support the brands that they support, and they want to support it beyond just the consumption of those brands. And I think that this is just a really interesting way of integrating our brand into other product lines. So And again, it's really just a direct response of the inquiries we were getting from consumers that wanted to buy merch. So, okay, I guess we'll make some merch.
All right. Well, when's it? By the way, when the buzz for but the buzz term in merch is when's it gonna drop? So when do ballpark when do you think the TAAT merch is gonna drop? Because I want to be look. I'm wearing the Agoracom logo right now, but I want to be wearing TAAT merch when we're doing these things.
I think. I mean, we're aiming for Q1, so we're just sort of working through some of the production, but we'll get it out as soon as we can.
All right, looking forward to that. By the way, any plans to launch TAAT in Canada? Because you're not in Canada yet, or is this just too small of a market, and you want to focus your time on US and EU?
No, we're working with another company in Canada called Christina Lake. We're exploring the regulatory environment. The way the regulations are written, it's an easier commercialization effort in the US and in Europe. Canada's a bit more onerous. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because of the way that the certain cannabis laws are written here. So we're trying to go through with the laws and the regulators to see whether or not we'd be able to bring the product in. But again, like that's just still in process.
Last question for you. This third quarter was a record number, all-time high, $1.3 million. Is this the inflection point for the company? Is this where we're going to just start seeing new quarterly record revenues for the foreseeable future?
Well, that's what I'd like to aim for. Bless you. I think that we're well positioned to deliver that. So again, it's a function of growth and adding more and more points of sale. And okay, we're in over 1,000, which is great growth for us. There's 400,000 points of sale in the US. So there's plenty of room to keep growing.
Right. So this is the beginning. As I've got to assume, by the way, this is me speaking, not SETI, but I've got to assume this is the inflection point, the growth cycle that takes place for, I don't know, the next 3-4 years. I just don't see how it goes backwards.
That's what we're aiming for.
Last word to you, SETI. Anything everyone at home should know as we're going into the weekend? Any words for your shareholders? Maybe something we haven't touched on?
Well, listen, I think that we've been able to demonstrate sort of continued growth, continued success. When we say we're going to do something, we go out and do it. And I think that, there's always a lot of runway ahead of us, given how big this market is. And I really do think that this plane's starting to take off, and we're really encouraged by that. So we hope to keep flying this plane higher and higher.
I love how you're holding back a little bit there. I love how you're just understating that a little bit. I think that's awesome. Congratulations, SETI, to you, the entire team. Record revenue, financing, distribution, international. We didn't even get a chance to touch on e-commerce. We'll do that another time. But congratulations, and as fellow shareholders, wish you nothing but the best going forward, my man.
Thank you, George. Always a pleasure.
To everybody home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To SETI Coscarella, he's CEO of TAAT Global Alternatives, trades in Canada under TAAT. For friends in the US, TOBAF, and of course for our friends in Europe on Frankfurt under 2TP. For those of you who are new and you want to find out how do I do my due diligence, get to the company's profile page on Agoracom. We've got the whole company laid out in a great summary form so you can understand all the big parts of this company, and then head over to the TAAT website, do your deep dive due diligence. Because guys, if you believe in these emerging CPG trends of taking original products, creating them healthier, and creating massive markets out of them, like we've seen non-alcoholic, like we've seen with plant-based meats and things like that, then you've got to do your deep dive due diligence on TAAT. Don't say we didn't tell you so. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.